All right. Well, hello and welcome to this DSM Forward event. The event is presented by the Greater Des Moines Partnership and is part of our DSM Forward initiative. Our goal is to help businesses and community members connect, share, and exchange information and resources related to moving forward in the next phase of reopening. The partnership has published industry playbooks, business playbooks, FAQs, and other resources that are available to you at dsmpartnership.com/DSM Forward. Hope these resources are helpful to you. And in addition, feel free to take a look at our most recent blog posts. There's many updates going out related to all things COVID, and unfortunately now the recent windstorm. So joining me today is Ruth Haas, the president of Living History Farms. Ruth, welcome.
Thank you.
And before we get started, I just want to let everybody know, logistics-wise, first of all, thank you. Thank you for joining, especially on a beautiful sunny day like today. Please, if you would, mute your microphone, turn off your video if you'd like to save bandwidth, and if you would, open up the chat window. We tend to use the chat window as a way to get Q&A going. Feel free to type in your questions at any time, and we will get to all those questions before the end of the session. So with that, I think I'm going to end the share of my screen. And Ruth, I thought we'd start out. Let's talk a little bit about what happened when the COVID shutdown hit. What happened for Living History Farms?
So right at about the time of mid-March, we were in the middle of our spring break camps, and we were hosting our historic dinners at several of our home sites on property. And we were also celebrating National Ag Day, which was a homeschool day event for us. And in the midst of all of that, once the governor closed businesses such as museums, that was on the 17th, we ended up having to cancel all of our programming really through the end of April, and then we took a wait and see approach to see if schools were going to be back and if we could reopen in May. Eventually, we were able to reopen in late May, and that gave us about a week to really onboard all of our seasonal staff and get them trained with all the new precautions and kind of screening procedures and all of those good things related to COVID that we needed to do to ensure a safe place for our guests and our visitors, and especially our day campers who began day camp on June 3rd. So we opened our season on the 1st, and right away we began receiving day campers, and we had a very successful summer. About 11 weeks of camp programming for just about 680 students.
Wow, 680 students, that's a big number.
It is. It's not as big as it normally is, but with the capacity limitations at the beginning of the season, and then making sure that we were really complying with all of the new field guide standards that the American Camping Association provides for us. Our camp is accredited, so there are over 300 rules and regs that we comply with regularly, so it was pretty easy for us to pivot and just kind of incorporate new cleaning protocols and things like that. So a lot of our junior counselors that are volunteers for us were traipsing around the property with buckets of PPE and all kinds of sanitizing equipment, and I have to give my turn my hat to all of the junior counselors, which are pretty much high school kids. We had about 88 of them helping us out this summer, and they did an outstanding job keeping our campers safe along with our college counselors.
You know, I've been doing these series for a while now, and I'm always amazed at the things I learned. So there was a set of over 300 rules already beforehand, before COVID, on managing a camp. I just had no idea. What kinds of rules do you get into? I'm just curious. What does that look like?
You know, for accreditation with the ACA for day camp, it's not even as robust as if you have an overnight camp. So, I mean, the volume is this thick of regulations for overnight camp. For us, it's mostly about the student to counselor ratios and managing behaviors and what to do in terms of keeping kids safe and managing expectations in that regard. Also health protocols, emergency procedures, those kinds of things.
Okay. So you talked about some of the changes, obviously the PPE that we're all getting very used to. Since you've opened up, what else are you having to do differently because of COVID? What kinds of changes has it forced on you?
So I think the oddest thing is seeing all of our frontline interpreters in period clothing also wearing masks. And that has taken some getting used to, but I have to say, everybody here has just been troopers about keeping everybody safe, and that includes our volunteers, many of whom are in higher risk categories and work side by side with our frontline staff to give our visitors a wonderful experience. A lot of our hands-on activities we've had to change to demonstration only. We have been able to continue to play historic 1875 rules baseball, which has been great. We're still offering that once a month, and at a time when baseball is a rare opportunity these days. We've had some great turnout for our games and a lot of fun outside, so that's been wonderful.
It's 1870s era rules baseball.
Yes.
Wow. So the kids get to play baseball with a new set of rules. I'm just curious, what are the big changes? What's different from today?
So in 1870s rules baseball, you can call your pitch. You're not using gloves. You can allow the ball to bounce before you catch it for a strike. Those are just a few examples. And of course,
Oh
they're
my.
wearing those really hot wool uniforms, which are not very comfortable, especially in Iowa weather in the summertime.
Boy, no kidding. That does not sound very cool. So I take it day camps, there's food, you've got to deal with food management, all those things. So
Yes,
what does that entail with COVID? I mean, is there even more regulation around that? Is it present more challenges for you?
it does. Our snack shop has only been able to provide prepackaged items, just very similar to what everybody else is doing. And
Sure.
the kids are bringing their own lunches, so that has really not changed from when pre-COVID existed for us.
Yeah.
Schools, we've had two school field trips, and we really didn't think we'd have any this fall, but we've had two schools come, and we have worry-free lunches still available for them. But again, it's all met with new opportunities to provide socially distant experiences for eating lunch. Not everybody's sitting down on picnic tables by the visitor center. We've moved picnic tables around so people can socially distance appropriately and really enjoy the nice weather when it's nice.
So as we start into the fall education season, I was thinking about you do a lot of educational things. You're talking about schools visiting already. Can you talk a little bit, because it's going to get harder in the fall. As we go into fall and the weather gets a little cooler, what are the kinds of things, programming wise and opportunity wise, are out there for parents with children, I think about the pods that are now forming,
Yes.
classes that are still in session, people are they're going virtual. What types of things will Living History Farms be doing?
So we still have some of our tried and true events that we'll be planning for the fall in September. Those would include Apple Fest, Fido on the Farms, and we'll be beginning historic dinners as well. But as we're pivoting to a different learning experience for kids, both at home and in school, our homeschool days really are taking on a bit of a new bent. We've been doing homeschool events quarterly for many years now. The next one is September 4th, and we're really wanting to reach out to those families who are at home and building their own pods of learning to come out and enjoy Homeschool Day, where we're doing a variety of activities that are still safe, and exploring themes that connect to social studies curriculums that they're learning in the classroom. All of our field experiences are relatable to those social studies standards that they're learning in the classroom. So whatever we put together will be a learning experience for those kids, and they can come out and enjoy some outside and get away from the computer for a little while.
Yeah, I was going to say, I bet you don't have a lot of computer screens out there that they interact with at the farm, do you?
We don't. In 1876, they didn't have a lot of online learning. So we're doing the best we can also to enhance our technology. We'll be looking at offering a variety of virtual opportunities after we close for the season. But for now, we really want to be a resource to those families that need to get their kids out into nature and experience some learning in a fun way that is still socially distant and safe.
So take me through it. If a family goes out there this fall, what are they going to experience? What should they expect in touring Living History Farms this fall?
So when you walk in, you'll notice a lot more hand sanitizer than you've normally seen. we we still are running our tractor carts on a regular basis, but they're actually picking up right at the visitor center instead of having you walk through town, and we're rotating people between the farm sites and also touring in town so that we're keeping people socially apart. Again, you'll see more demonstrations instead of hands-on activities. We are asking our guests who are able to wear masks, as long as they don't have a medical condition or some kind of situation that they cannot wear masks. We are continuing to provide as many opportunities as we can. Our family Halloween is coming up in October. We're still planning to do that, albeit perhaps with timed ticketing to ensure more social distancing. And we're planning our winter break camp as we speak. Again, for December, we know kids are going to be tired of all that online stuff, and parents will want to get their kids out. And we're hoping to provide a winter break experience that, again, is safe, but more in nature and outside, and that is one of the things we're uniquely positioned to do, being on 500 acres and having this wonderful land and facility where learning can still occur.
It's interesting as we look into the fall and then winter this year, all of us are probably more aware than ever of wanting to be able to get outside in the wintertime and get out and get some fresh air. And we've been talking about a lot about engaging winter, right? I mean, we need to really dig in and engage winter. So what type of winter activities will people find out there on the winter break?
So a lot of our theme this year has to do with celebrations because we've celebrated our 50th anniversary this year. We were also very excited to receive accreditation from our museum parent association, the American Alliance of Museums, and we're really focusing on our collections and what we can showcase. We opened a new building behind the blacksmith. We call it the Red Barn. That's our endearing term for it. But it's additional indoor exhibit space, and we're hoping to create more opportunities in the winter for folks to come out. We'll have adult education classes still available. A lot of people like to do baking and blacksmithing. We've done classes where you can learn how to drive oxen in the wintertime. So all of those things will continue, albeit in a socially distant and safe manner. The one event that we're not sure yet will happen is, as you know, every year we run the Living History Farms race. And our volunteers are really taking a hard look at whether we can do that this year or if we have to take a pause and really postpone for a year. So that is one event that is still up in the air for the fall for us.
Okay, makes sense. So you engage a lot of volunteers at Living History Farms. Can you talk a little bit about what the volunteers do? What kinds of work are they doing, and what are the different kinds of roles?
Sure. So in a normal year, I would say we have over 800 volunteers that provide more than 20,000 hours of service to us, and they do that in a variety of ways. Sometimes you'll visit living history farms and meet an interpreter in period clothing and really not know the difference between a paid staffer and a volunteer. We have those core volunteers, and there are hundreds of them that serve throughout the season in that way. We have behind the scenes volunteers that want to help with special projects in restoration or in our collections areas, in taking care of the objects that are historic and have provenance. We have volunteers that help us just pick up leaves and sticks or garden and do some of those things behind the scenes. We have volunteers that help in period clothing to actually sew and mend the clothes that you see our interpreters wearing. And we have office volunteers as well. So we really couldn't do what we do without the strength of our volunteer program. And one of the things that's most surprising is the majority of our volunteers are under the age of 18. They are our junior counselors and those that help with day camp. And it's just so wonderful to see volunteer service being at the forefront of these youth and how they're engaging with their community and really growing in their service to others.
Yeah, it is very nice to see. So speaking of picking up leaves and sticks, our windstorm that went through last week, what was the effect on the farm of that windstorm?
Well, usually when it rains, we lose power and internet. And the strange thing with the derecho is we did neither. We continued to have both internet and power throughout the storm, while our neighbors around us suffered severe damage. We had a lot of limbs that fell, a lot of tree damage that we had to worry about, but no building damage, which was great because we did have the vice president here on Thursday, and so our cleanup was very abrupt, but limited really to picking up debris around the property. That was it.
Okay, I've got to ask, what is it like to prepare to have the vice president visit your facility? I've never been through that before.
You know, we had President Obama here several years ago when he was touring for his reelection campaign, and that really helped us to get a really good sense of what is expected from Secret Service, what's expected from the advance team. And there were a couple staff that had not been through it before, and it was a wonderful learning experience for them. Great opportunity. The one thing we'll say is it's impossible to keep the museum open while we have a visit of that magnitude because of the security that is involved in preparing for a visit like that. But we've learned that, and we've really adjusted to that, and everyone's been very accommodating, and we're grateful to have that opportunity.
So going back to the volunteers, are you still looking for volunteers?
We're always looking for volunteers,
Okay.
and those can be one-time volunteers. A lot of volunteers come through their businesses and plan a day of service. And while a lot of businesses are not back and people are not back in the office, we're still always looking for people to do service projects, whether they want to come out and paint or if they want to come out and help with gardening or those types of things. So yes, we are actively seeking volunteers. We will ensure a safe and socially distant experience for those activities that we plan, and absolutely our door is open.
Well, I'm just thinking about those of us who have been working from home. I've been working from home myself since March. The opportunity to get out and about, sometimes it would be nice to take a small amount of time off and go volunteer to do something physical and do it outdoors.
Come on over. Come on over.
Come on over. Okay. Okay. Other things you'd like to talk about today? What else is going on that's really impacting you, or what else is going on that you find interesting right now?
Well, I think the thing that's been really difficult for my museum counterparts all over the country is there was a survey done recently by the American Alliance of Museums, and they say that about a third of all museums may close as a result of the shuttering due to COVID. And that's a very sobering statistic for all of us. Everybody wants to know when we'll be able to welcome guests back in a normal way. I don't know if that will ever be possible. And like I said, we're very fortunate as an outdoor facility, and not as many museums are able to pivot the way we've been able to. And so that's a concern for me because I feel museums are really an important part of the fabric of any community and can really serve as an engaging and convening place for those types of conversations that we all want to have, and for fun and to learn intergenerationally with one another. And so we're very mindful of that and wanting to continue to serve the community. We're doing it in different ways than we ever have. We have a COVID testing site in our parking lot. We've been doing that for the last month as a service to the community. We'll be putting on a holiday display of lights also during the winter time where people will drive through the property and enjoy holiday lights over the
Oh, nice.
holidays. And so we're just looking for unique ways. If we can't do the run, if we can't do some of the other things that we normally do, how else can we serve the community? And so that's important for us, especially as we are celebrating our 50th anniversary and looking at ways to really continue to be an important part of the fabric of the Des Moines community.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here listening. You've said a couple times your 50th anniversary, and I don't know anything about how this all got started. Can you take us back and explain where all this came from?
I sure can. So Dr. Murray was a ag economist at Iowa State University, and he ran for office himself. I think he ran for governor and lost in the primary. And he's always been an avid fan of agriculture and museums. One day, I think he visited the Smithsonian and he saw a static exhibit of farm power machinery and really thought to himself, wow, wouldn't it be great if people could actually see this machinery at work in fields and really understand where their food comes from and how it's prepared and processed and harvested and put on your table. And so that is really where the idea of Living History Farms came from. He did not have a large endowment to begin the museum. He didn't have land gifted until later on in the process, but he accumulated the acreage that we're on now and really wanted a museum where people could engage with objects and see things actually happening process-wise with agriculture and how agriculture has changed through time in a very hands-on way. So he was really a visionary in the way museums are changing today and having those experiential opportunities as opposed to just looking at static exhibits.
You know, it's interesting because I think when I think back to museums of old, the idea of an interactive experience wasn't very common. It sounds like he was kind of ahead of his time when it comes down to a truly interactive environment.
Absolutely, and that's something we take a lot of pride in, and that's why it's so sad today that we can't do a lot of those hands-on activities. We can show you how to churn butter, but right now it's just not safe for us to actually have you churn the butter yourself. We'll get back to that, I'm sure, in some
Sure.
way. But yeah, we are looking for ways to share those experiences a little bit differently this year.
Yeah. So going back to the museum, you know, the issue you talked about with museums and the concern that many will close. Uh, we know that there's always the fundraising piece. We're all, you know, anybody that's in the nonprofit world is challenged by that today. What else should people be thinking about in the sense of supporting their museums and the other nonprofits that are out there? What would you encourage people to think through and maybe take action on?
Well, I think Iowans are just such a generous people, and that is with their time and their talents, and not just their treasures, not just their contributions to organizations. But, I'm going to share one thing, if I may share my screen.
Certainly.
Hold on
Go
one
right ahead.
second. I'm going to, let me see. Okay. So this was a really nice surprise for us. This past Sunday, there was actually, it's not an editorial, it was a letter to the editor that a parent just put in a nice thank you to us for helping with all of the changes in day camp that we provided. That was just so kind and, took very little time, I'm sure. But I really am so grateful to all the people that take the time to say thank you in the midst of all the chaos and changes that are going on right now. And I also had a phone call. Let me see here. I don't know if you were able to see that or not.
No, we weren't, but that's okay.
Um, We also had a phone call from a woman this past week. Her name was Jen Sherman. And she just called to say, hey, I just want you to know I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing if it weren't for Living History Farms. She was a city kid who attended one of our camps maybe 2 decades ago. And she said it changed her life. And she just wanted to call and let us know that. And she's
Huh.
operating a rescue for goats. And I just think that museums have such a unique way of creating an experience or an aha moment that can be life altering. And it's just taking the time to think about visiting us when it is safe and appropriate, and having those experiences with families and friends, and just coming out and enjoying the day and unplugging a little bit. So I'm just grateful for really the kindness that everybody's shown us through this time.
Well, and it's nice to be in Iowa right now, and you look at what's going on in the world. To your point about people being pretty nice here, it's an amazing place to be. I guess as we close this off, I think one of the things I would tell people to think about as we look at, our city moving forward and the area around it is, we are more and more a social media world, and not just for the, the tech of it, but we look at each other's recommendations and referrals. So I would just ask everybody, as you're finding these nice experiences around the area, especially some that aren't as well known or aren't as well thought of, it aren't as likely as thought of at times, share them out there with people and let them know that these things are available. I know that my wife and I have been doing a lot of scenic drives in Iowa and found a lot of new and interesting places to go that we've been able to share out there. So, well, Ruth, with that, I want to thank you for joining us today. It's been really enjoyable to have you with us. We will be making this recording available if you want to share it with anyone going forward. It'll come out on our blog next week. And I'll just remind everybody of the DSM Forward website. It's dsmpartnership.com/DSM Forward. Ruth, I think maybe you could just real quick, the website for your organization is?
Yes, it's www.lhf.org. And if you're looking for something to do or a tasty meal with our historic dinners, you can find all the information on our website.
All right. Well, again, to all the attendees, thank you very much for joining us. And with that, we'll bring the call to an end. Thank you,
Thank
Ruth.
you.
Bye-bye.